Your brain can ruin your life with a perfectly reasonable story. If you have ever looked back at a choice and thought, "How did I not see that coming?" You are not broken. You are human. You are running a mind built to decide fast in a world that feels loud, uncertain, and impatient. When you are tired, stressed, lonely, hungry, or trying to prove yourself, your brain does not slow down. It speeds up. It reaches for shortcuts. Those shortcuts are cognitive biases, predictable bends in thinking that feel like truth while they are happening. I want you to picture a late-night kitchen. The light is too bright for the hour. The room is quiet except for the low hum of the fridge. You open it without thinking, not because you are starving, but because you want a feeling. Comfort, control, distraction, something. In that moment, you are not making a food decision. You are making an emotion regulation decision. Emotion regulation is the way we try to manage what we feel. The mind will call it logic, the body will call it relief. Cognitive biases are not just mistakes, they are strategies, ancient ones. They helped us survive when information was scarce and danger was real. The problem now is that the same shortcuts can shape what you buy, who you trust, what you fear, what you avoid, and what you keep repeating. They can make you mistake familiarity for safety, intensity for importance, and confidence for competence. One of the most powerful biases is confirmation bias, which means you notice and remember information that supports what you already believe, and you ignore what challenges it. It is not just political, it is personal. If you believe you are hard to love, you will collect evidence like a detective with a mission. A delayed text becomes proof. A distracted tone becomes proof. A neutral face becomes proof. Meanwhile, the quiet acts of care slide past you like rain on glass. Your mind is not trying to hurt you. It is trying to feel certain. Certainty feels like control. And when confirmation bias teams up with negativity bias, things get heavy. Negativity bias means your brain gives more weight to threats and losses than to safety and gains. One critical comment can erase 10 kind ones. One awkward moment can replay for years. It is why you can lie in bed and your mind chooses the worst scene from the day, then zooms in, sharpens it, and calls it reality. Your nervous system does not care about your sum. It cares about social belonging. Long ago, being rejected could mean being alone, and alone could mean not surviving. Now add availability bias. Availability bias means you judge how likely something is based on how easily examples come to mind. If you scroll past a few stories about illness, betrayal, accidents, or financial collapse, your body starts acting like the world is mostly illness, betrayal, accidents, and collapse. The mind confuses vivid with common. The more emotional the image, the more available it becomes. Your brain is like a search engine that ranks results by intensity, not accuracy. This is why your attention is not a neutral spotlight. It is a value system. What you look at repeatedly becomes what your brain thinks matters. And what your brain thinks matters becomes what it prepares you for. If you feed it danger, it builds a life designed around avoiding danger. If you feed it outrage, it builds a personality designed around being on guard. If you feed it comparison, it builds a self-image designed around never being enough. Comparison itself has a bias built in. It is called the spotlight effect. The feeling that people notice you far more than they do. Spotlight effect means you overestimate how much others are watching your flaws. You walk into a room and your mind says everyone sees your anxiety, your skin, your posture, your hesitation. Most people are busy managing their own inner weather. They are not studying you. But your brain treats attention like survival. It assumes eyes are judgment. It assumes judgment is danger. Then there is anchoring, one of the sneakiest. Anchoring means the first number or idea you hear becomes a reference point, even if it is random. A price tag, a salary range, a first impression. You meet someone on a bad day and that becomes the anchor. Later, even when they show warmth, your brain compares it to that first cold moment. Or you hear a high price first, then a slightly lower price feels like a deal, even if it is still overpriced. Your brain loves anchors because they reduce effort. They let you stop thinking. Your brain also loves stories that protect your identity. That is where self-serving bias shows up. Self-serving bias means you credit your successes to your character and blame your failures on circumstances. When things go well, you say it is because you are capable. When things go badly, you say it is because the system is unfair, the timing was wrong, the other person was difficult. Sometimes that is true, but the bias is the automatic tilt. It keeps your self-image intact. It also blocks growth because if everything is always someone else, you never get the power back. The opposite can happen too, especially if you carry shame. Then you might do a reversed version. You blame yourself for everything and you dismiss your wins as luck. That is not humility. That is a bias shaped by pain. It is the mind trying to maintain a familiar identity, even if that identity hurts. Familiar can feel safer than unknown. Another big one is the sunk cost fallacy. Sunk cost fallacy means you keep investing in something because you have already invested in it. Time, money, effort, pride. You stay in a job that drains you because you already spent years there. You stay in a relationship that shrinks you because you already tried so hard. You keep a habit that numbs you because you already built your evenings around it. The mind hates waste. It would rather waste more than admit the first investment did not pay off. This is not stupidity. It is grief avoidance. Ending something means facing the loss, and loss is emotionally expensive. And then there is the bias that keeps you stuck in place even when you know better. Status quo bias. Status quo bias means you prefer the current situation because changing it feels risky, even if the current situation is quietly miserable. The devil you know feels predictable. Predictability calms the nervous system. This is why people can live in routines that slowly dim them, not because they want less, but because their brain is wired to avoid the discomfort of change. The first step into a new life often feels like stepping into fog. Let me bring this down to a normal day. You wake up and your phone is there. You tell yourself you will check one thing. That is optimism bias, the belief that you will be the exception, that you will handle it better this time. Optimism bias is not always bad. It can keep you hopeful, but when it meets a device designed to capture attention, it turns into a trap. You open an app and you see a flood of opinions. Your brain starts sorting people into good and bad. That is fundamental attribution error. Fundamental attribution error means you explain other people's behavior as their personality and your behavior as the situation. They cut you off in traffic. They are selfish. You cut someone off, you were in a rush. This bias makes you harsh with others and lenient with yourself, or sometimes the reverse if you are anxious. Either way, it distorts reality, and once your brain has sorted, it defends its sorting. That is where cognitive dissonance kicks in. Cognitive dissonance means the discomfort you feel when your actions conflict with your values. If you see yourself as disciplined, but you keep procrastinating, your mind will create a story to reduce the discomfort. The story might be, I work better under pressure, or I just need the right mood, or this task is pointless anyway. The bias is not the procrastination. The bias is the story that protects your identity so you do not have to feel the sting of misalignment. This is why changing your life is rarely about learning what is right. It is about noticing the stories you use to avoid feeling wrong. The mind will do almost anything to avoid shame. Shame is the feeling that you are bad, not that you did something bad. When shame is nearby, biases become bodyguards. You might also recognize the Dunning-Kruger effect. Dunning-Kruger effect means when you know a little, you often feel very confident, and when you know a lot, you feel more cautious. It is not because experts are weak, it is because they can see complexity. The danger is not confidence. The danger is confidence without calibration. It makes you overpromise, underprepare, and then blame the world when reality does not match your certainty. So what do we do with all this? Not fight the brain like it is an enemy. That just creates more tension. I work with a different move. I slow the moment down enough to notice the bias before it becomes a decision. The first thing I listen for is urgency. Urgency is a scent. It smells like now or never. It pushes you to buy, text, quit, lash out, or prove something. Urgency is often not truth. It is anxiety wearing a mask. When I feel urgency, I ask a simple question. What is the feeling I am trying not to feel? That question is a form of affect labeling, which means naming an emotion so the brain can process it. When you name it, you reduce its grip. Not because words are magic, but because naming recruits the part of the brain that can regulate the part that is on fire. Then I look for what my attention is doing. Attention is a budget. If I spend it all on threat, I will feel poor no matter how safe I am. If I spend it all on comparison, I will feel behind, no matter how far I have come. Biases often start as an attention habit. So I check what I have been rehearsing. Rehearsal is repetition. Repetition becomes belief. Belief becomes identity. Identity becomes behavior. This is why your feed can shape your fate. I also watch for the need to be consistent. Consistency bias means you feel pressure to stay aligned with what you said before, even when new information appears. You said you were fine, so you keep acting fine. You said you were over it, so you pretend you are. You said you were the kind of person who never quits, so you keep holding on long after it makes sense. Consistency can be strength.